Good morning, everyone. So, ready? Yesterday we completed one section 40A. 40, section 40. We were into disallowances, no? So in disallowances, we completed section 40, 40 clause A, 40 clause B, 37 2B, 38 and 40A we were doing. Which section we were doing? 40A. 40A subsection 2, we did it. 40A subsection 3, we started. Okay. Now see, pay attention. 40A subsection 3 says that you are incurring any expenditure for your business or profession. But the expenditure is not a capital expenditure. This is a normal business expenditure. Yes or no? So, expenditure for your business or profession other than capital expenditure, meaning other than the expenditure to buy any asset. So, if that expenditure is incurred by you, and now you are making the payment of that expenditure in a day to a person, and that payment is more than 10,000. If the single payment is more than 10,000 or multiple payments made in a day, aggregate of those payment is more than 10,000 in a day. So that payment has to be made by prescribed modes. But if you are making those payments by other than prescribed modes, then such payment will not be treated as your business expense and such payment will be disallowed. Right now? Now, see this 10,000 limit which is there. This 10,000 limit is applicable for all the expenses. But this limit of 10,000 will be 35,000 in the case of payment made for transport charges. Which payment? So if you are making a payment to a transporter, any transport charges, freight charges. So how much is the limit for that? 35,000. Up to 35,000, any mode you pay, it will be allowed. Transport and freight charges. Up to 35,000, any mode you pay, the payment will be allowed. But if the payment is more than 35,000, then other than prescribed modes, then the payment will be disallowed. Understood, no? See, payment through prescribed modes only, up to 10,000 is allowed, more than 10,000 is disallowed if other than prescribed mode for all the payments. Now, if assessee is making the payment for transport charges to the transporter, then instead of 10,000, you are going to take the limit of 35,000. Okay, no? This is 35,000. Okay. Now see, now there is one important discussion which I am going to make. Okay. In this discussion, what is happening now? Assessee is following mercantile system of accounting. Which system of accounting? Mercantile system of accounting. Okay, no? Now, in this mercantile system of accounting, what is happening? I am telling you. Assessee has incurred any expenditure for business or profession. Now for this expenditure was for, say for example, last year, previous year 24-25. So last year some business expenditure was incurred. Okay, and this expenditure was still payable in the last year. So expenditure belongs to this year or last year? This year or last year? Last year. And it was payable in that year. It was allowed. Allowed as deduction in the last year. So in 24-25, it was allowed as a deduction. Why it was allowed? Because the assessee was following mercantile system of accounting. We know na, if mercantile system of accounting is followed, mercantile system of accounting is followed, then expense of any year, whether paid or payable, will be allowed in the same year. So what you did, you incurred some business expenditure for last year. That expenditure was not paid in the last year. That expenditure was not paid in the last year. Still that expenditure was allowed as a deduction in the last year. So expenditure is already allowed. Expenditure is already allowed. Okay. From the income of last year. Now for this expenditure, if the payment is done, in a day to a person, and the payment is single payment. Payment is single payment or multiple payments are done in a day. Single payment is more than 10,000. Multiple payments done, the aggregate amount is more than 10,000. And if this payment is made by way of modes other than prescribed modes. Now my question is, if this payment is made by modes other than prescribed mode, can the payment disallowed? Can the payment be disallowed under section 48(3)? You all are very sweet. What did I say? You all are very sweet and very innocent. How the bloody hell you can disallow something which was already allowed? The expense was already allowed, no? So if you have already allowed the expenditure in the last year, how are you going to disallow now? But don't you think this should have been disallowed? Hello? But 48(3) cannot be applied. 48(3) gets applied only if the expense is yet not allowed and you are claiming the deduction, then the deduction will be disallowed. Deduction will not be allowed if the deduction was not taken. But here, for the expenditure, you have already taken the deduction. How can that be disallowed now? So here 48(3) is not applicable. So the expenditure is not disallowed. Why? Because it was already allowed. So here, don't you think this expenditure should have been disallowed? Why? Because payment is made other than prescribed modes. But how to reverse that now? So a new section will come. Here 48(3) will not be applicable. A new section 48(3)(a) will be applicable, and as per 48(3)(a), whatever payment is done which is more than 10,000 by modes other than prescribed mode, that entire payment, such payment will now be treated as your deemed PGBP income of the year in which you have made such payment. So what happened? First you took the deduction of expense. On what basis? Due basis, accrual basis, mercantile basis. Now for that expense also later on you are going to make the payment, then you have to make sure that the payment is made by prescribed modes. But in the future, after claiming the deduction for the expense, in the future, if you are making the payment by other than prescribed modes, then whatever payment you have made by other than prescribed modes, that will be treated as your deemed PGBP income. To do that reversal, the expense which was allowed, and now that amount will be disallowed. How it will be disallowed? By considering that amount as your deemed PGBP income. If you have made the payment by other than prescribed modes. 48(3) was applicable, no? What I told, that if you are an assessee, you have incurred any expenditure, and for that expenditure the deduction is not yet claimed. The deduction is not yet. You want to claim the deduction of this business expense. So you are going to the department. The department, give me the deduction for this expense. Department will ask you, oh, you have made the payment of this expense? You will say, yes. Payment is more than 10,000? Yes. In a day to a person? Yes. Other than prescribed mode? Yes. Disallowed. Then 48(3) is applicable. Understanding? But what if you have already claimed the deduction of that expense based on due basis? So you have incurred some expense on, you have incurred some expense for your business or profession. You are going to the assessing officer, telling them, assessing officer, I have incurred this expense for this year. He will ask you, have you made the payment? You will say, no, it is still payable. Still allow me the deduction. He will ask you, why? Because I am following mercantile system of accounting. Oh, you are following mercantile system of accounting. PGBP calculated on mercantile basis. No problem, claim the deduction. Once you claim the deduction, then afterwards, when you will make the payment of this expense, no, that time also you have to remember that if the payment is made, which is more than 10,000 for this expense, which was already allowed, if the payment later on is more than 10,000 in a day to a person, and if that payment is also made by other than prescribed modes, then even that payment should be disallowed. But now it cannot be disallowed under 48(3) because it was already allowed on what basis? Due basis. Then to give that reversal, 48(3) will be applicable. What will be applicable? 48(3) will be applicable. And as per 48(3), what will happen? That payment which is more than 10,000, which is made other than prescribed modes, will now be treated as your deemed PGBP income. Understanding? And same limit of 35,000 will be applicable if the payment is made to transporter. Transporter for transport charges and freight charges. Will you remember this? So now what is the difference between 48(3) and 48(3)? Come on, you all tell me. I am writing 48(3) over here and I am writing 48(3)(a) over here. Both the sections, what is the difference? First one, any business expense other than capital expenditure not yet claimed as what? As deduction, and payment in a day to a person is more than 10,000 or more than 35,000 as the case may be, then such payment by way of modes other than prescribed modes, then we have not yet given you the deduction, so that deduction will not be allowed. Yes or no? Since the deduction was not given, you are coming to us to claim the deduction. That deduction we are not going to allow. That will be disallowed. Such business expense will not be allowed as a deduction to claim your, to calculate your business income. Understanding? This is what happens when you follow 40(a)(3). Okay, sir? Now, what about 48(3)(a)? Tell me. 48(3)(a) will also talk about business expense. Business expense other than capital expenditure, which you have already claimed as deduction under the head PGBP. On what basis? On due or mercantile basis. Yes or no? Now, for this, the payment in a day is made to a person by way of other than prescribed modes. Yes or no? Payment is made in a day to a person other than prescribed modes. Then, how can you bloody disallow something which was already allowed? Now, disallowance will not be attracted. What will happen? Now, such payment. What did I say? Such payment shall be treated as what? Deemed PGBP income as per 40A 3A. Done, sir? Okay. Now see. Now 40A 3 and 40A 3A gets attracted if payment for business expenses is more than 10,000 or more than 35,000 as the case may be, and such payment is made by any mode other than, do you remember no prescribed modes? What are the prescribed modes? Come on, tell me. What are the prescribed modes? Account pay check or draft, then RTGS, then NEFT, then UPI, then account pay check, and then debit card, credit card, then Aadhaar UPI, then something more was there. Guys, other prescribed modes. Debit card, credit card, you said no? Okay. So, these are the prescribed modes, no? Now pay attention. 40A3 and 40A3A gets attracted if the payments are made other than prescribed modes. But sometimes there are some exceptions. In these exception, 40A3A will not be attracted. What did I say? In these exceptional cases, 40A3A will not be attracted. Even if the payments are not made by prescribed modes, still the payment will be allowed as a deduction. Still, it will not be treated as deemed PGBP income. There are some exceptions. So now, you will have to be very careful about those exceptions. Now, in the examination, what is happening? The moment you saw that the payment is more than 10,000 or 35,000, as the case may be, and sir, this payment was made in a day to a person. This is a payment for business expense, and this was not made by prescribed modes. You immediately disallowed that payment as per 40A3, or you immediately considered that amount as a deemed PGBP income as per 40A3A. Your answer will be wrong. Why? Because in the question, exception was asked. What was asked? In the exceptional cases, you are not supposed to apply 40A3, 40A3A. Nothing will be, expense will not be disallowed, payment will not be disallowed, payment will not be treated as deemed PGBP income in these exceptional cases. So where are these exceptions given? These exceptions are given in Rule 6DD. Which rule? So now we are going to check. Rule 6DD. Which rule, sir? 6DD. That is given on your page number 3.276. No? Let me check. 3.276. Not 3.276. After that, yes. 282. Okay. Now, can I say? See here. Cases and circumstances in which a payment or aggregate of payments exceeding 10,000 rupees may be made to a person in a day otherwise than by account pay check, account pay bank draft, use of ECS through a bank account or through such other electronic modes prescribed in Rule 6 ABBA. Meaning Rule 6DD is given and Rule 6DD is telling you cases and circumstances where 40A3, 40A3A will not be attracted, no disallowance will be made, no deemed PGBP income will be considered. So you are supposed to remember these cases properly. An important case I will tell you to, highlight. Okay, no? Because those cases are many times tested in the exams. See, where the payment is, first point, where the payment is made to, what they are saying, made to, meaning the recipient of the payment. If you are making a business expense, if you have incurred a business expense and for that business expense you are making the payment to, you are an assessee, but to whom you are making that payment? The person to whom you are making the payment is RBI. RBI or any banking company, SBI or any subsidiary of SBI, any cooperative bank or land mortgage bank, any primary agricultural credit society or any primary credit society, or even the LIC. Mark this point important. Now for your business expense, assessee, you are making the payment to any of these payees. Then whatever payment you have made, whatever may be the amount of that payment, even if the payment is more than 10,000, yes or no? And even if the payment is not made by prescribed mode, that payment will be allowed as a deduction. Because you have made the payment to RBI or any banking company, SBI or subsidiary of SBI, then any cooperative bank or land mortgage bank, then any primary agricultural credit society or any primary credit society or LIC of India. If the payment is made to these persons, then pay by whatever mode you want. That payment will be allowed as a deduction. That business expense, the payment for that business expense will be allowed as a deduction. It will not be disallowed under 40A3. It will not be treated as deemed PGBP income under section 40A3A if the payment is made to these persons. Okay, important point. Next one, where the payment is made to, government, and under the rules framed by it, such payment is required to be made in legal tender. What is the meaning of legal tender? Cash. The currency notes are there, no? Currency notes are known as what? Legal tender. So if for any business expense you are making the payment to government, and as per the rules framed by the government, that payment you have to deposit, you have to make that payment to the government by legal tender in cash only. So as per the government rules, government is asking me to make the payment in what? Cash. Hence I am making the payment in cash. Hence the payment is not made in prescribed modes. So what is my mistake in that? Government itself is telling me to make the payment in cash to the government. So for any of my business expense, if I have to make the payment to the government, for any of my business expense, if I have to make the payment to the government, and as per the rules of the government, that payment I have to make in legal tender, in cash. Hence I am making that payment in cash. Otherwise I would have made the payment in prescribed modes. So why are you trying to put me in trouble? Don't attract 48.3, don't attract 48.3. Otherwise tell the government to frame the rules, to change the rules. That I should make the payment in prescribed modes. I will make the payment in prescribed modes. But if the rules framed by the government wants me to make that payment in cash, hence I am making that payment in cash. Understanding or not? Next one. Whereas payment is made by. See, here it was made to and now it is made by. Made by following modes. Write down. Made by following modes. Now even if these modes are not prescribed modes, even if these modes are not prescribed modes, but if you make the payment by these modes also, then also that payment will be allowed as a deduction. Understanding? Now, sometimes you import the goods, import the services from outside India. So whenever you import something from outside India, to the person who is outside India, now you are going to make the payment. So for your business expense, what did I say? For your business expense, you have to make the payment outside India. So whenever such payments are made, no, that party sitting outside India wants the guarantee that the payment will be surely made. Only then he sends the goods to India. For example, for your business, you want to buy raw material. You want to buy, and that raw material you are buying from China. Can you do that? The person sitting in China would want you to make the payment, and he will make sure that his payment does not get stuck in India. When he is sitting in some other country, you are in India, you are buying the goods from him. So that particular person, before sending the goods, he will be very much anxious that this buyer from India, whether he is going to make me the payment or not. So in these international transactions, usually the payments are done through letter of credits, LCs. So I will have to first go to my bank. I will have to tell the bank to open a LC, letter of credit for me, in the favor of that person sitting in China. And once the LC is opened, only then the goods are sent. And the payment is done through that LC, letter of credit. So if for your business or your profession, any expenditure is made by you, and that expenditure, for that expenditure you are making the payment through LC, no problem, even that payment will be allowed as a deduction, because the payment is made through LC, letter of credit. Okay, next one. Mail or telegraphic transfer. Okay, earlier this used to happen a lot, mail or telegraphic transfer, but after the online banking modes and everything has come, no, so this kind of transfers have been reduced. Mail transfer or telegraphic transfer, meaning you'll send money through mails. Mails means letters, post. So earlier telegrams used to come. In that telegram, if you want to send some money, even I have received such kind of money from my father when I used to live in Mumbai, no? So I did not have any bank account. So at that time my father used to send me money through telegrams, mail transfers, 500 rupees sometimes 300 rupees. I used to have a call with my dad. I used to call him. I used to tell him, Dad, for this much, for this particular hostel fees, I want this much amount. For my books, etc., I want this much amount. So my dad used to send money through mail. So that he will go to post office, he will give the money in the post office, then from that post office, the money is collected, then a person will come to me from the post office in Mumbai, and he will tell me that for you there is a mail transfer. So he will see my ID card and everything, and then he will give me that money. So the money is coming through mail transfer or telegraphic transfer. Yes or no? So that is also known as telegraphic transfer or mail transfer. But this thing has been stopped now. You know, many of the places are not having, many of the post offices have discontinued doing this. Why? Because the banking system has developed so beautifully, you know, over the past 15, 20 years that this thing is no more required only. Everyone, almost everyone is having a bank account. And now the payments are through UPI, GPay, PhonePe and all. Yes or no? So now this is discontinued, but still it is written in the rule. Okay. Next one. Any book adjustment. What did I say? From any account in a bank to any other account in that or any other bank. What is happening? Fund transfers from one account to another account. So if I have one account in a bank and you are also having an account in that same bank or any other bank also you are having, right? No, and I have to make the payment to you. How will I make the payment? I will give the instructions to the bank that from my account transfer the money to the account of this person. And now the account can be in the same bank also, account can be in other bank also. As per my instructions, the bank will do the transfers. So this is what? From one account, the money is getting transferred to another account. Yes or no? So that is known as book adjustments. So any book adjustment from any account in a bank to any other account in that or any other bank. So that book entries, through book entries only the settlements are done. So that is known as payment, and for this also 40A3, 40A3A will not be attracted. Then payment through bill of exchange, made payable only to a bank. So payment through bill of exchange, and that bill of exchange is payable through a bank only. Only then that payment will be allowed as a deduction. So if you are not making the payment through prescribed modes, but even if you have made the payment through these modes also, then also the payment will be allowed as a deduction. Mark this point, also important. Okay. Now point number D, where the payment is made by way of adjustment against the amount of any liability incurred by the payee for any goods supplied or services rendered by the assessee to such payee. If anyone can crack this, no, I'll be more than very happy. Crack this. How the payment is made? Payment is made through adjustment, book adjustment. Book adjustment against the amount of any incurred by the, not incurred by me, liability incurred by payee for any goods supplied or services rendered by the assessee to such payee. That person is my creditor because he has taken some goods or services from me. So he is my creditor for 1 lakh rupees. And now I am making a payment to that creditor. So that creditor is also a debtor for me. In my books, you are my creditor and you are also my debtor. So how much I owe to you? 1 lakh. How much you owe to me? 80,000. Hello? So to pay you 1 lakh, sorry, how much I owe to you? 1 lakh. Okay. How much you owe? 1,20,000. So I am supposed to make you a payment of 1,20,000 because you are my, sorry, I am supposed to make you a payment of 1 lakh because you are my creditor of 1 lakh. And at the same time, I am supposed to receive 1,20,000 from you because you are my debtor also. So debtor, I'm supposed to receive how much from you? 1,20,000. And I'm supposed to pay you how much? 1 lakh. To make that payment, I'm doing an adjustment from this debtor. So I will reduce my debtor by 1 lakh, meaning your 1 lakh payment is done. Understanding? So in my books, I am adjusting debtor against creditors, meaning to those creditors I am making the payment by way of what? Prescribed modes? No, only through book adjustment. Debtors against creditors. Understanding? So this is what? This is also an exception. In this case also 40A3A will not be attracted because the payment is made through book adjustment in the books. Debtors against creditors. Okay, no? So this is also important transaction. Now point number E is very important. Huh? Many times they ask in the exam. Where the payment is made for the purchase of. Payment is made for the purchase of following items. Now what are you purchasing for your business? For your business, are you purchasing any agricultural or forest produce? Yes. For that agricultural or forest produce, you are making the payment by any modes. It will be allowed as a deduction. In your business or profession, are you purchasing any produce of animal husbandry, including livestock, meat, then hides and skins, or any dairy or poultry farming? So you are buying any produce of animal husbandry, or you are buying any product of dairy or poultry farming for your business, including what? You are buying livestock, you are buying meat, you are buying hides and skins for your business. And now for this, you are making the payment. So in your business, you are making the payment for these items because you are buying these items in your business or profession. So to buy these items in your business or profession, now you will make the payment to any person by any mode. It is allowed as a deduction, not required to be made through prescribed modes only. So even if the payment is more than 10,000, but the payment is made for these items, then that payment can be through any modes. It will be allowed as a deduction. Next one, payment is made for fish or fish products. Payment is made for products of horticulture or apiculture. Remember, now the payment, they are saying that 1, 2, 3, 4. These 4 products you purchase. And to purchase this product, for the purchase of this product, you are making the payment. And the payment is made to the cultivator or grower or producer. Meaning, if the payment is made to the cultivator, grower or producer of such articles or products, only then that payment will be allowed. Only then payment will be covered by exception. If you are making payment to any other person for these items, then 40A3 will be attracted. Yes or no? But if the payment is made for these products to their cultivator, grower or producer. So you are a cultivator of agricultural produce. You are a grower or producer of agricultural produce, forest produce, etc. Yes or no? Then to you, by whatever modes I'll make the payment, that payment will be allowed as a deduction because you are the cultivator, grower or producer of that particular item. Understanding? So please remember this thing. This point they ask many times in the exam. This point. Okay. Next one. Don't go into detail in these notes. Not required. Not required. Okay. Where the payment is made for the purchase of products. Now you are making the payment. Payment is made for the purchase of. See, here what were you purchasing? agricultural produce, forest produce, produce of animal husbandry including livestock, meat, hides and skins, then produce of poultry or dairy farming, then fish or fish products, products of horticulture or apiculture. For these products, you are making the payment to their cultivator, grower or producer. Then the payment was allowed by whatever modes you make the payment. Here they are saying that now you are going to make the payment for purchase of which product? The products which are manufactured or processed without the aid of power in a cottage industry to the producer of such product. Now tell me, payment is made for the purchase of. Payment is made for the purchase of what product? Product of cottage industry. Product which is manufactured in cottage industry. Which cottage industry? The cottage industry which is running without the aid of power. Aid of power meaning handmade items. Without the use of power, these products are made. Without the use of power, these products are manufactured in a cottage industry. So, to the producer of that product, if you are making the payment, then that payment can be by any mode. Will be allowed as a deduction. Not required to be made in prescribed modes only. So, the payment has to be made to producer of such goods, and goods are produced in cottage industry without the aid of power. So any product, what did I say? Any product which is manufactured or produced in any cottage industry without the aid of power. For that product, if you are making the payment and that payment is made to the producer of that item, yes or no, then that payment can be made by any mode. Even if prescribed mode, then also allowed. Even if other than prescribed mode, then also allowed. 40A3, 40A3A will not be attracted. Okay. Next one. This is also important now. Point number F is also important. Mark this important. Next one. Where the payment is made in a, now the payment is made in a village or town. Payment is made in a big city or a small town or a small village. So payment is made in a village or in a town which on the date of such payment is not sought by any bank. And now that payment in that village or in that town is made to any person who ordinarily resides or carrying on any business or profession or vocation in such village or town. Understanding? So, you went to some small village, you went to some small town, and you are making the payment in that village or in that town to a person who ordinarily resides in that village or town. And on the date on which you are making the payment, that village or that town does not have any banking facility. There are many remote villages in India where you will not see any bank. If you will go to Himachal Pradesh, if you will go to Nagaland, Sikkim, many places in India are there. Many small villages are there and towns are there where there are no banks. If you want to go to a bank, the bank will be 20, 30, 40 kilometers from that village in a nearby big, center. So if I say that I go to Manali, I went to Manali. Manali and Shimla are big centers in Himachal Pradesh. If you want to see a bank, you can see a bank in Manali and Shimla, etc. Why? Because they are big centers. But from Manali, When we start traveling to internal parts of Himachal Pradesh, there are small villages, very small villages, very small towns. There you will not see any bank. What if you are purchasing something for your business or profession from that town, from that village? Definitely you will have to make the payment in cash. You are there in that town, you are there in that village, and you are making the payment in cash. Why? Because as on the date on which you are making that payment, that village or that town does not have any bank. And make sure that payment is made in that village or that town to the person who ordinarily resides in that town. So the person who ordinarily resides in that village or town, or who ordinarily does his business, profession or vocation in that village or town, and from that person if you have bought something for your business or profession, and to him if you are making the payment, you can make the payment by any modes. That payment will be allowed as a deduction. Understanding or not? Even this point is important. So the payment is made in a village or town. On the date of such payment is not served by any bank, and that payment is made to any person who ordinarily resides or carrying on any business, profession or vocation in such village or town. Understanding? Next one. Point number H. Now the payment is made to an employee. So assessee, you are making the payment to an employee? Yes. Or the heir of such employee, legal heir of such employee. So you are making the payment to the employee or legal heir of such employee on or in connection with the retirement, retrenchment, resignation, discharge or death of such employee, on account of gratuity, retrenchment compensation or similar terminal benefit, and the aggregate of such sums payable to the employee or his heirs does not exceed 50,000. This point is also important. Retirement payments. The payments which are supposed to be made as retirement benefits, like gratuity, commuted pension, retrenchment compensation, VRS compensation, and the aggregate of these payments are 50,000 or less. Then that payment you will make to your employee or his legal heir. You can make that payment by any mode. It will be allowed as a deduction. So retirement payments to the employee, retirement payment to the employee, or on his death to the legal heirs. If those retirement payments, the aggregate amount is 50,000 rupees or less, then you can make the payment by any mode. It will be allowed as a deduction. But if the payment is more than, if the aggregate of such payment is more than 50,000, then you have to make sure that the payments are made through prescribed modes. Only then it will be allowed as a deduction. So now we have three limits. 10,000 for all business expenses, 35,000 for transport and freight charges, and 50,000 for retirement payments. Yes or no? So for retirement payments, the limit is 50,000, up to 50,000 any modes. It will be allowed as a deduction. But if the payment is made and the payment is more than 50,000, then it has to be prescribed modes. Understanding? Next one. Where the payment is made by an assessee by way of salary to his employee. Now assessee is making the payment of salary to his employee after deducting the TDS from such salary. Okay. And when such, in accordance with the provisions of section 192, section 192 is what? TDS provision for salary. So are you an employer? Yes. Are you making the payment of salary to your employee? Yes. Have you deducted the TDS? Yes. Then when such employee is temporarily posted for a continuous period of 15 days or more in a place other than his normal place of duty or on a ship and does not maintain any account in any bank at such place or ship. So are you making the payment of salary to your employee? Hello? When are you making that payment? You are making that payment to your employee when your employee is posted posted permanently or temporarily? Temporarily. Temporarily you are sending that employee for your work to such a place where there are no banks or on a ship. So if your employee is posted temporarily, for a continuous period of 15 days or more in a place which is not a normal place of his duty. Normally you are working in Bangalore, but for 2 months I am sending you to some other place. So that place where I am sending you is not a normal place of your duty. Temporarily for 2 months you are supposed to go there and again you are going to come back. For example, a big project is going on. Big highway project is going on. So you are my employee. So you'll have to go to, that site. And that site is away from your normal place of duty. Your normal place of duty. Where is your office? Bangalore. But you are going to some other place. Are you I'm permanently placing you there? No. I'm posting you for temporary period. Do your work and then come back. Come back to your base. So if the employee is temporarily posted to some place which is not his usual place of duty, or the employee is posted on ship, crew members, yes or no? And in that place or on the ship, the employee does not have any bank account, then definitely I'll have to make the payment by other modes other than prescribed modes. I cannot make the payment through account by check. I cannot make the payment through ECS, etc. Understanding? I'll have to make the payment in cash. So I made the payment in cash. But remember, I'll have to deduct the TDS from that salary. Then whatever salary I have paid to such employee will be allowed as a deduction, even if it is not paid through prescribed modes. So all these conditions must be satisfied. Will you remember this, sir? Everyone, just give me a second. Okay, see now, this is also important. Mark this point also important. Okay, next one, where the payment is made by any person, to his agent. Payment to your agents, who is required to make payment in cash for goods or services on behalf of such person. So if your agent is required to make the payment in cash on your behalf, then make the payment to your agent in cash, no problem. We'll allow that payment as a deduction. But for that, your agent is required to make the payment on your behalf in what? Cash. So if your agent is required to make the payment to others on your behalf and that payment is required to be made in cash, then make the payment to your agent in cash. That payment we are going to allow as a deduction. Understanding? Now see, last point. where the payment is made by any authorized dealer or a money changer against purchase of what? Foreign currency or traveler check in the normal course of his. So in the normal course of your business, you are a money changer, you are an authorized foreign currency dealer, yes or no? So in the normal course of business, people will come and give you foreign currency. People will come from outside India, they will give you traveler's check. So in the normal course of business, you are going to get foreign currency, you are going to get traveler's check. Against that, you are supposed to make the payment in Indian currency, because that person who is giving you traveler's check, that person who is giving you foreign exchange, what does he want from you? Indian currency, cash. So definitely you are going to make the payment in cash, and that cash payment you are making in the normal course of your business will not be disallowed because it is a cash payment. It will be allowed as a deduction. So on this payment also, 40A3, 40A3A will not be attracted. Will you remember this? Sure, everyone? Mobile phone. Sure. Not using mobile phone. Where is your mobile phone? Show me. Give your mobile phone. Give. Keep it here. I told everyone to keep the mobile phone in the bags, huh? Was it in the bag? Okay. Now, next one. So, will you remember all these points? Especially those points which we have highlighted. Okay. These are what? Exceptions. Given in rule 6DD. In these cases, even if the payments are more than 10,000, more than 35,000, as the case may be, and the payments are not made in prescribed modes, still your payments will be allowed as a deduction. The disallowance under 40A3 will not be attracted. Such payment will not be treated as your deemed PGBP income under section 40A3 or 40A3A. Yes or no? Now, this is the end of your 40A3 and 40A3A. Now coming to 40A7. Now pay attention what 40A7 wants you to tell. See, do you know gratuity we pay? Gratuity. So how do you pay gratuity to your employees? There are two ways to pay the gratuity. First, keep some amount aside to pay the gratuity later on. From that amount, later on the gratuity will be paid. That is known as, first you make the provision for gratuity, meaning contribution to gratuity fund. So there is a gratuity fund which you have created. In that gratuity fund, you keep on contributing the amount, and later on, whenever the gratuity liability arises, that time you pay the gratuity out of this fund. This is one way in which the gratuity can be paid. Second way, the gratuity can be paid directly from your profits, because you have not created any fund. So from your business income of this year, directly you are going to pay the gratuity, because you have not created any gratuity fund. So how many ways are there to pay the gratuity? Two ways. One, through gratuity fund also, or through your normal business income directly also. Yes or no? Now see, the gratuity liability is not known right now, that how much gratuity you are supposed to pay to your employee. Why? Because your employees are not going to retire right now. They are going to retire, they are going to live in the future. So when you will actually know that how much actual gratuity is supposed to be paid, right now or in future? So gratuity liability right now is ascertained or unascertained? So to what is happening? The gratuity liability which is not known now. I know that I have to pay gratuity, But am I going to pay that gratuity today? No. In future. I know that I have to pay gratuity. But that gratuity is not known right now. So that is unascertained liability. So as of now, I know which is my liability, but the amount of that liability, exact amount of that liability is not known right now. So that gratuity liability is unascertained. Now for that unascertained liability, what I am going to do? I'll keep some amount aside. Provisions. Meaning, I will make a gratuity fund and I will keep on transferring that amount to my gratuity fund. So what am I doing? I'm making the provision for what? Gratuity, which is right now unascertained. I'm making the provision for gratuity right now, which is unascertained. When it will be ascertained? In future, when the employees will leave, when they will retire, at that time, will I make the payment to them? Yes or no? How I will make the payment at that time? Through this provisions, through this fund which I have created right now. From this fund only I can make the payment. Or if I had not made any fund, at the time when the gratuity liability will be ascertained, I did not have any gratuity fund, then I will have to pay that gratuity from my business income, from my profits. Yes or no? So tell me, right now what I will do? Right now I will provide, meaning provision. Provision for gratuity. This gratuity is right now unascertained liability. Now this provision, meaning setting aside, keeping aside. I will setting aside funds, setting aside some amount for payment of what? Gratuity later on. So gratuity later on, at that time it will be ascertained liability. So right now when the gratuity is unascertained liability, right now what I am doing? I am setting aside some amount. Setting aside some amount means I am making contributions. Contribution to a fund which I will make for payment of gratuity, that is known as gratuity fund. Yes or no? So I have created a separate fund known as gratuity fund. In that fund I am setting aside money. So this year will I put some amount in the gratuity fund? That is nothing but contribution to gratuity fund. Contribution to setting aside some amount means what? Setting aside some amount means what? Contribution to gratuity fund. And that is nothing but provision for gratuity. Now, if this contribution is happening to a gratuity fund, can I say the gratuity fund can be approved? Yes or no? Meaning it was required under the law, and as per the requirement of the law, I have made this gratuity fund and I am getting it approved also. So can I make the contribution right now to approve gratuity fund? So in 25-26, I am making the contribution to approve gratuity fund. Hello? Last year also I made some contribution in this fund. Next year also I will make some contribution in this fund. Next to next year also I will make some contribution in this fund. Every year I am contributing some amount to this fund. Why? Was it my wish? Or there was a statutory requirement? So because of a statutory requirement, because of any law which is there in India, I have to bloody do this. If I don't do it, that law will take strict actions against me, which I don't want. So I have to compulsorily set aside some amount, contribute that amount in gratuity fund for my employees. Now when I will set aside that amount, to a approved gratuity fund, meaning whatever contributions which I have made in this year to my approved gratuity fund, don't you think that contribution is allowed as what? Deduction under section 36 subsection 1 clause 5, if you remember, subject to 43B. 36 subsection 1 clause 5, I have already taught you this. If you contribute to the approved gratuity fund of your employee, that contribution is allowed as a deduction. So are you contributing to approved gratuity fund? Yes. Why are you contributing? Because gratuity, which is your unascertained liability, gratuity which you are supposed to pay in the future, for making the payment of that gratuity, right now you are contributing to the fund, meaning you are setting aside some amount, meaning you are making a provision right now. This type of contribution is allowed as a deduction. Specific section is there, 36 subsection 1 clause 5, but subject to 43B. If you remember this, for this, the contribution should be made in this year, or the contribution should be made on or before the due date of filing ROI of this year. Then whatever contribution you are making to this approved gratuity fund will be allowed as a deduction. So amount contributed right now, are you actually paying this amount to your employee? No. Right now this amount is just going to your gratuity fund. But the moment it will go to gratuity fund, 100% you have to pay this amount to the employee whenever the employees are retiring. So we know that if you will make the contribution to such fund, then this contribution is confirmed going to be received by your employee later on. How much he will receive later on, we don't know. But this entire amount, sooner or later, you are actually going to pay to your employees. Understanding? So take the deduction of this amount right now only at the time when you are making the contribution. Now tell me, in future when your employees will retire, in future when your employees will, from this fund, actual payment of gratuity will happen? Tell me, actual payment of gratuity will happen from approved gratuity fund. Thank you. So approved gratuity fund, actual payment is made. It will be made today or in future? In future, no? So in future, you are paying the gratuity to your employee. At that time, will you get any deduction for that gratuity? Gratuity you are paying to the employee, it is your business expense, should be allowed as a deduction. Yes or no? So that gratuity you are paying right now or in future? So in future, whenever you will pay that gratuity to your employee, will that gratuity be your business expense? Yes. Will it be allowed as a deduction in that year? Yes or no? No. Because bloody that gratuity you are paying out of approved gratuity fund. The amount which you have invested, the amount which you have contributed in approved gratuity fund, that contribution we are allowing right now only as a deduction, and out of that contribution in the future if you will make the payment of gratuity, and for that gratuity also if we are going to give you the deduction at that time, what will happen? Same amount will be allowed twice. We are allowing right now when you are making the contribution. And from that amount, if in the future the gratuity is paid, that gratuity will again not be allowed as a deduction. Understanding? Because that gratuity payment is out of that amount which we have already allowed you as a deduction when you were actually contributing. So, will you contribute to approved gratuity fund? Tell me, first of all, tell me simple thing. Provision for what? Provision for gratuity means the gratuity which you are going to pay in the future. That gratuity is right now not known. So that gratuity is unascertained liability right now. That gratuity is unascertained liability right now. Yes or no? Now, the gratuity which is supposed to be paid in future, for that you are making a provision right now. Meaning you are setting aside some amount in a fund known as what? Gratuity fund. And that gratuity fund is approved gratuity fund. So in this year, whatever amount you are going to contribute in the approved gratuity fund, in this year only, this amount we are going to allow. Even if the contribution is made to approved gratuity fund for unascertained gratuity, that entire contribution we are going to allow. So right now what are you going to do? When you will contribute this amount in this year you can take the deduction of this contribution. Done, sir? Yes or no? But later on, when your employees will retire, so to those employees, are you going to make the payment of gratuity? That time the gratuity will become ascertained liability. So when the payment of gratuity will happen later on, at that time, the payment of ascertained gratuity at that time will be made out of this fund only. So when you put money in the approved gratuity fund, at that time we are going to give you the deduction, and out of that amount only, if you are making the payment of the gratuity, should we consider this same payment as your business expense at that time? Should we allow you this gratuity as a deduction at that time? No. At that time this gratuity will not be allowed as a deduction, because that gratuity is coming out of the gratuity fund, and the amount which was contributed in the gratuity fund was already allowed as a deduction. So out of that amount, if any gratuity is paid in the future, that gratuity will not be allowed as a deduction. Otherwise it will result into double deduction. Yes or no? So that actual payment of gratuity from approved gratuity fund shall be allowed or shall not be allowed? Shall not be allowed. Not allowed. As what? As deduction. Yes or no? Now let's see. What if you have created a gratuity fund? You have created a gratuity fund. But that gratuity fund you have created on your own voluntarily. There was no legal requirement. There was no statutory requirement on you to make such gratuity fund. So definitely the gratuity fund which you have made is approved or unapproved now. Now it will be unapproved. Unapproved. Why it is unapproved? Because there was no statutory obligation on you to create such gratuity fund for your employee. Still you have created a gratuity fund saying that, see, I want to pay gratuity to my employees in the future. I want to pay. I want to pay. The government does not want me to pay, but I want to pay the gratuity to my employees in the future. To pay that gratuity, I have created a gratuity fund right now. Is it approved by the government? No. Why? Because it was not required to be made only. Still you have created a gratuity fund. Now in that approved gratuity fund, today you are going to make the contribution. So you are making the contribution now in which fund? Approved gratuity fund or unapproved gratuity fund? Now just imagine if we allow this contribution also right now. What will happen? You will take the deduction of the contribution right now, and later on you will not pay the gratuity to the employee from this fund, because there was no requirement only to pay the gratuity. And even if you don't pay that gratuity to the employees out of this fund, nobody can do anything to you at that time, because there is no law which makes an obligation or liability on you to pay the gratuity in the future. So if there is any law putting a liability on you to make the payment of gratuity in future, and for that the law wants you to make a gratuity fund right now, then it is okay. But if there is no law in India which tells you to create a gratuity fund for your employee to make the payment of gratuity in the future, bloody you are doing this thing on your own. There was no statutory requirement to create such type of gratuity fund. Then the unapproved gratuity fund where you are contributing right now, it is very risky to give you that deduction right now. So any contribution you are making to this fund right now for payment of gratuity in future will not be allowed right now when you will be making the contribution. This will be disallowed. 40A subsection 7. Which section? 40A subsection 7 says that any contribution which you are making right now to unapproved gratuity fund will be disallowed. Disallowed as per which section? As per section 40A 7. So right now you are contributing some amount to unapproved gratuity fund. Is this amount getting allowed right now? No. Now later on, if you actually pay the gratuity out of this amount, that gratuity will be treated as your business expense that you can claim as a deduction in the future. Because that gratuity will now be allowed as a deduction. Future, you will pay the gratuity. So now, from where you will pay the gratuity? From that fund only, which was unapproved. So when you actually contributed the money, that amount was not allowed as a deduction, and now out of that amount in the future, if you will pay the gratuity, that gratuity in that year will be your business expense. We will allow you as a deduction. So what is happening? Contribution is made in the fund, that contribution is allowed. Out of that contribution in future, if the gratuity is paid, that is not allowed in future, because that is out of the amount which we have already allowed. Understanding? Right now, if you are making the contribution, this contribution is not allowed as a deduction. This contribution is not allowed as a. Now out of this, actual payment of gratuity is happening in the future. Actual payment of gratuity is happening from unapproved gratuity fund in the future. Then that actual gratuity payment will be treated as your business expense, and it will be allowed as your business expense in the year of payment. Understanding? So first, the contribution is made, that contribution is not allowed as a deduction. So out of that contribution in the future, if you are paying the gratuity, that gratuity we are going to allow you as a deduction, as your business expense. Will you remember this? Hello? So gratuity payment in the future can happen through approved gratuity fund also, unapproved gratuity fund also. So if the gratuity payment in the future is happening through approved gratuity fund, that will not be allowed as a deduction at that time. But if the gratuity payment in the future will happen through unapproved gratuity fund, then that will be allowed as a deduction. And also, if there was no fund maintained, then in the future, how will you pay gratuity? From your business profits of that year, even that gratuity will be allowed as a deduction. Understanding? Yes or no? So the gratuity is paid through unapproved gratuity fund, gratuity is paid through unapproved gratuity fund, or gratuity is paid through the business profits, then that gratuity is allowed as a deduction, as your business expense. But if the gratuity is paid through approved gratuity fund, then that gratuity is not allowed as a deduction. Understanding? Now when you contribute right now in approved gratuity fund, that contribution will be allowed as a deduction subject to 43B. Subject to 43. But if you contribute right now to any unapproved gratuity fund, if you contribute to any unapproved gratuity fund, then that contribution to unapproved gratuity fund will be disallowed under section 40A(7). Done, sir? Sure, sir? Now see, what is this? gratuity liability. If the gratuity liability is unascertained, meaning not known right now that how much is to be actually paid. So for this unascertained gratuity liability, what are you going to do? You are going to create a provision right now. You are going to keep aside some money right now, meaning you are going to contribute to gratuity fund. If the contribution is in the approved gratuity fund, then that contribution will be allowed under 36 subsection 1 clause 5. In this year only, this contribution will be allowed as a deduction, subject to 43B. If the contribution is made to unapproved gratuity fund, then it will be disallowed as per 40A7. 40A7 disallows this. Okay. Next one. The gratuity liability will be ascertained. Will it be ascertained right now or in the future? So whenever in the future the gratuity liability is ascertained, meaning you know that how many employees are leaving, actually how much liability, how much gratuity I am supposed to pay, that time the gratuity liability will be ascertained. At that time the payment is made for that ascertained gratuity. And from where that payment will be made? The payment can be made from approved gratuity fund. The payment can be made through unapproved gratuity fund. Any payment of gratuity, ascertained gratuity in the future is made out of approved gratuity fund, will not be allowed as a deduction. Any payment of ascertained gratuity in the future from unapproved gratuity fund or profits of that year will be allowed as a business expense in that year. Understanding? This is 40A7. Done. Now let's go to the next section, 40A subsection 9. 40A subsection 9. What is this 40A9? This says that if you are an assessee, you are making any contribution in this year to any non-statutory fund or scheme of your employees. So you have created a fund or a scheme for your employee. Was it statutorily required? No. There was no legal requirement on you to create such type of fund for your employees. And still you are creating such funds or schemes for your employees, and in those funds, in those schemes, you are contributing right now. Don't come to us to claim the deduction for that contribution, because we are disallowing that contribution as per 40A9. Any contribution made to non-statutory, what did I say? Non-statutory funds or schemes for the welfare of your employee. You can take the name of your employee and come to us and emotional blackmail that, see, I have created this fund for my employee, I have created this scheme for my employee, see, I am from my business profits, I am contributing this much amount to for my employees, I am contributing this much amount for my employees, yes or no? And just because you are contributing to that fund right now will not allow you to take the deduction of this contribution, because this contribution is actually not spent for your employees right now. And what is the guarantee that it will be spent in the future also? The fund is not a statutory fund. And if the fund is not a statutory fund, even if you will not spend the amount for the benefit of your employees in the future, nobody can do anything to you at that time also. Getting my point, what I am trying to tell you? So do one thing, whenever you will spend money for your employees out of this fund, that time we are going to give you the deduction, because that time it will be actually spent for your employees. But if you are keeping aside some money right now, taking the name of your employees, that, see, I'm setting aside this money for my employees, this will not be allowed as a deduction, because you are setting aside money in a fund, in a scheme, which is not statutorily required. So any contribution right now by the assessee to the non-statutory funds or schemes for the employees, that contribution to non-statutory funds will not be allowed as a deduction right now. Later on, when you will actually spend money for your employees out of this fund, at that time you will take the deduction. Just like the way it was disallowed for unapproved gratuity fund, for this also we are going to disallow. But we are going to disallow under section 40A subsection 9. Will you remember this? Hello sir. Will you remember this? So where are you contributing? Non-statutory funds or schemes for the welfare of your employee. So any staff welfare fund, any staff welfare scheme which you have created for the benefit of your employee. If it was not required by any law, it was non-statutory fund, non-statutory scheme. And in that scheme, in that fund, if you are contributing right now, that contribution will not be allowed as a deduction. That will be disallowed. So right now the amount will be disallowed at the time when it is contributed. Later on, out of this fund, out of this scheme, whenever you will actually spend the money for your employee, at that time it will be treated as your business expense. At that time we are going to allow it. But don't claim it right now. Understanding? Can you contribute to statutory funds of your employees? Statutory. Meaning the law tells you to make such type of funds, to make such type of schemes. And as per the requirement of law, you have made such funds or schemes. And in those funds or schemes, if you are contributing, no, those contributions are going to be allowed. Like we allowed for contribution to RPF, contribution to ASF, contribution to approved gratuity fund, contribution to NPS, National Pension Scheme. So these are the contributions which you are making to statutory funds, statutory schemes of your employee. But remember, any contribution to the statutory funds or schemes, we are going to allow that, but not in excess of specified limits. Do you remember what was the limit specified for NPS? If I contribute to the NPS account of my employee, how much amount I can contribute? Maximum 14% of my employee's salary. To that account, to that extent I can contribute. Yes or no? So is the contribution made to statutory fund? Yes. It is made up to the statutory limits. Then the entire contribution is allowed. But what if the contribution is made in excess of those statutory limits? That any excess contribution, even if that contribution is happening to statutory fund, even if it was allowable, will not be allowed because the contribution is in excess of statutory limits. Even that will be disallowed as per 40A(9). See, now pay attention. Any contribution, any amount contributed to non-statutory funds. Which fund? Fully disallowed. Fully. But what if you are contributing to statutory funds? Contributing to statutory fund, it will be allowed, but it will be allowed up to statutory limits. Any contribution in excess of statutory limit will be disallowed, will also be disallowed as per section 40A(9). And that is the reason why you disallow excess contribution to NPS over and above 14%. And there also I have told you this. Okay. So tell me, contribution to non-statutory fund or scheme for the employees' welfare will be disallowed as per 40A(9), and contribution to statutory funds or scheme for employees' welfare will be disallowed under 40A(9), which is in excess of statutory requirement. But up to statutory requirement, it will be allowed as a deduction. Over and above that, it will be disallowed. Even that amount will be disallowed under section 40A(9). Will you remember this? And section 40 clause A subclause 5, I have already told you yesterday. Tax on non-monetary perquisite of the employee paid to the government. Paid to the government by the employer. So are you an assessee? Yes. Are you an employer? Yes. Are you paying the tax on the non-monetary salary, non-monetary perquisites of your employee? Yes. That is fully exempt in the hands of employee under section 10(10)(c), and that will not be treated as your business expense, will not be allowed as a deduction under the head PGBP that is given in 40 clause A subclause 5. I have already told you this. Yes or no? But it was supposed to be written somewhere, so I have written here. Okay. Next one. Now the last section for disallowance. Last section for disallowance. This is your section 43B. And we have referred to this section many times. Subject to 43B, subject to 43B. So what is 43B? 43B, there are few expenses specified. There are few expenses specified in which section? 43B. Which are those expenses? C, T, B, I, L, R. C, T, B, I, L, R. C for contribution to employees, RPF account or ASF account, or contribution to approved gratuity fund account. Do you remember, for this you claim deduction under section 36(1)(4). For this you claim the deduction under section 36(1)(5). So deduction for these contributions is available. These are also treated as your business expense. Claim the deduction. But you are supposed to claim subject to 43B. T for taxes, duties, cess levied under any law and payable to the government. So any taxes, duties, cess, fees, etc. payable under any law. But these taxes, duties, cess or fees are related to your business or profession. So can you tell me any of the taxes, duties, etc. related to your business or profession? Yes, GST is there, customs duty are there, import duty, professional tax, even the taxes of the property used for the purpose of business or profession. So these taxes are allowed as a deduction under the PGBP head. Taxes of the building will be allowed under section 30. Other taxes like GST, import duty, etc. will be allowed under section 37(1), general deduction. Yes or no? So is it your business expense? Yes. T for taxes. Is it your business expense? Yes. Will it be allowed as a deduction? Yes. Subject to 43B. B for bonus or commission. Do you remember 36 subsection 1 clause 2? Bonus or commission came. So if you are giving bonus or commission to your employees, even that will be treated as your business expense. 36(1)(2). But even that will be allowed subject to 43B. Then next one, I for interest on your business loans. The business loan was taken from specified lender. If you remember, I have already told you, 36 subsection 1 clause 3. Any interest on your business loan will be allowed as a deduction under section 36(1)(3). But if the interest is payable to specified lenders, public financial institution, state finance corporation, any state industrial investment corporation, then any scheduled bank, any cooperative bank, any banking NBFC, these are what? Specified lenders. To these lenders, if you are paying the interest on your business loan, then that interest on loan will be allowed as a deduction, but subject to 43B. What if interest is payable to some other lenders? That interest will also be allowed as a deduction, but that is not subject to 43B. Which interest is subject to 43B? The interest which is payable to these lenders, specified lenders. Yes or no? Then L for leave salary, which you are going to pay to your employment. Leave encashments. Hello. So are you going to give leave encashment to your employee? Yes. Even that leave encashment will be your business expense. 37(1). Just like your salary, leave encashment given to your employees will also be allowed as a deduction under section 37(1). Then any sum payable to Indian Railways. Any sum payable to Indian Railways for use of railway asset. So R for railway assets. So in your business or profession, any railway asset you are using, for example, you are using the rails for transportation of your goods from one location to another location. Are you going to pay freight charges? Hello? You remember, no? Those small rail wagons are there. In those rail wagons, you load your goods and those goods are transported from one place to another. So in your business, for transportation of your goods, are you using the asset of railway? Yes. You are using the rails, which is the asset of railways for your business. So are you going to make the payment to railways for that? Yes. That payment will be allowed as a business expense. You are a catering contractor. And you have taken a contract of catering, running a small canteen on railway platform. So on a railway platform, you are running a canteen as a catering contractor. Yes or no? So in your catering business, are you using a canteen? In your catering business, are you using a canteen? Yes, but that canteen is on platform. That is an asset of the railway, which you are going to use in your catering business. For that, are you going to pay the sum to the railway? Yes. When you use any assets of the railway, even the hoardings of the railway for your advertisement, those canteens on the railway platforms for running your canteen business, yes or no? Even the railway wagons for transportation of your goods, any asset of the railways you are using for your business or profession, and for that asset, now the sum is payable to the railways. Even that is your business expense, but allowed subject to 43B. Any payment for use of railway asset in your business or profession will be your PGBP expense, yes or no? Will be allowed as a deduction, but subject to 43B. Will you remember the names of these expenses? What are the names? The name is like this. See, if the assessee is if there is an assessee is any person. Okay, assessee is any person. Assessee has incurred certain specific business expenses, specified or specific business expenses. So what are the business expenses which are specified? Come on, tell me. C, T, B, I, L, R. C, T, B, I, L, R. C for contribution. Contribution to RPF, contribution to ASF, contribution to approved gratuity fund. T for taxes, duties, cess, fees payable under any law which are related to your business or profession. CT. B for bonus or commission payable to your employees. I for interest on business loan payable to specified lenders. L for leave salary payable to your employees. R for amount payable to railways for use of railway assets. Apart from this, one more payment is there that I am going to tell you a little later. Okay, no? But C, T, B, I, L, R. These are your business expenses. Are you going to claim the deduction of these business expenses under PGBP head? Yes. But these will be allowed only on payment basis. Meaning what? Pay these expenses in this year. These expenses will be allowed as a deduction in this year's business income. Yes or no? Pay these expenses on or before the due date of filing ROI of this year. Still these expenses will be allowed as a deduction from this year's business income. Yes or no? But if these expenses are not paid till the due date of filing ROI of this year, then these expenses will not be allowed as a deduction from this year's business income. These expenses will be disallowed as per 43B. and they will be allowed as a deduction in the year in which they are actually paid. From that year's business income, they will now be allowed as a deduction. But they cannot be claimed as a deduction in this year. This year they will be disallowed. This year's business income, you cannot take the deduction of these expenses out of this year's business income. They will be disallowed if these expenses are unpaid till the due date of filing your ROI. They are not paid, then they will be disallowed. Will you remember this? C for? Even if you want to read this section 100 times, no, still read it 100 times. You have to remember, you have to by heart this entire section. 100% there is one adjustment out of this section in your PGBP question. So which all deduction disallowances are very important? 40A2, 40A subsection 2, very very important. Payment to related parties in excess of reasonable amount or unreasonable payments to related party. Confirm one adjustment is there for that. Then 40A3, payment more than 10,000, more than 35,000 in a day to a person, and the payment is more than 10,000 or 35,000, and that payment is made other than prescribed mode, that entire payment will be disallowed. 40A3, 40A3A. If 40A3A is not there, confirm 40A3 is there in the exam. 40A3, 40A3A, both the sections are important. Then this section 43B, which we are doing right now. If you see the question on PGBP, confirm these three adjustments are there in that question. Confirm. Any question you pick up, you'll have any of these three disallowances. Okay, and if you are not doing these disallowances properly, then what? You are going to lose the marks. Now that means, sir, we are not supposed to do 40A7, 40A9, 40 clause A, 40 clause B. We are not supposed to do them. Did I tell you that? You are supposed to do those sections also. But the frequency of these coming in the exam is not that much as compared to these three sections, which I just now told you. But that does not mean that those disallowances will not come in the exam. They will also come. But they will come in the combination of these three sections. Yes or no? Now tell me. C for contribution to RPF or ASF. Then contribution to approved gratuity fund. T for taxes, duties, cess or any fees payable under any law to the government. Then B for bonus or commission payable to the employees. I for interest on business loans. Interest on business loans payable to specified lender. L for leave salary payable to the employees. R for railway assets. Any sum payable to railways for use of railways. If these expenses for this year are not paid up to the due date of filing ROI of this year, then these expenses will not be allowed as a deduction in this year on due basis. Understanding? Even if you are following mercantile system of accounting, these expenses will be allowed only on payment basis, and you will have to make sure that these expenses are paid on or before the due date of filing ROI of this year. If these expenses are not paid up to the due date of filing your ROI of this year, then these expenses will be disallowed, will not be allowed as a deduction from this year's business income. Will be allowed as a deduction from that year's business income in which they are actually paid. Will you remember this? Sure? Pay attention. Now see, read this part. Read this entire part. Done? Read this part now. Did I explain the same thing? Sure. Next one. Now few important points to remember. Okay. See, if you are an assessee, you have taken a loan from specified lenders. On that loan, some interest was payable. For the past few years, the interest was not paid. So tell me, first question, did you get the deduction for this interest? Last year interest, last to last year interest, last 3 years interest was pending. Interest was not paid. So if the interest was not paid to specified lenders, this interest was not allowed as a deduction. Last year interest not paid, not allowed in last year. Last to last year interest not paid, not allowed as a deduction in that year. Last to last year interest was not paid, so in that year also it was not allowed as a deduction. Now, for example, all the 3 years interest is paid in this year. Will it be allowed as a deduction in this year? Yes, but for that you will have to make the payment of that interest. Yes or no? So last year interest, last to last year, last to last year, all the 3 years interest which was not paid earlier will now be paid in this year, so it will be allowed as a deduction in this year. All the entire interest which you have paid in this year will be allowed as a deduction in this year, because earlier it was disallowed under section 43B. Last year it was disallowed under section 43B. Last to last year and prior to that it was disallowed under section 43B because it was not paid at that time. So it was not allowed as a deduction in that year. But if you pay the interest in this year, will it be allowed as a deduction in this year? Understanding or not? What is the meaning of payment? You have to actually make the payment of that interest. Only then it will be allowed as a deduction. Yes or no? But sometimes what happens, when you take a loan and you are not in a position to pay the interest and the principal amount of that loan, so you approach the bank and you tell the bank that, bank, please reschedule my loan. See, sometimes the banks also understand that you are a businessman. You might have taken a loan from the bank. Now, the repayment will happen within 5 years. So you have taken a loan for how many years? 5 years. Business loan you have taken for how many years? 5 years. Interest is at a particular rate. For example, the interest rate was 6%. So take the loan from any bank. That loan you have to repay within 5 years. And on that loan, interest is also how much? 6%. But sometimes in the business, unforeseen circumstances are faced by the businessman. The businessman is not able to pay the interest. Then that interest is disallowed. And also he is not able to pay the loan, etc., principal amount of the loan. But this businessman is a genuine businessman. He is going to the bank and telling the bank that, bank, please, see, I want to pay you back the loan. I want to pay the interest also. But due to some unforeseen circumstances or losses in my business, the funds are very limited or no funds available with me right now. So I cannot pay you the principal. I cannot pay you the interest. So could you please help me out for that, bank? Could you please reschedule my loan? What? Reschedule means what? Try to give me longer repayment period. Try to reduce some interest, because it is a burden for me. And see, if huge loans are given by the banks, so banks do agree to reschedule. It is better to reschedule. It is better to give the businessman longer duration to repay so that his EMIs are reduced. It is better to reduce some rate of interest rather than losing the entire amount of loan and interest. So even the banks will agree and will understand that, see, financial crunches are there. Okay, because of that, let us not harass the sorry, this particular businessman is in a financial stress. Let us not put him in more trouble, more financial stress. Let us reschedule the loan. So what the bank does? How much was your repayment time? 5 years. So bank will extend it to 7 years, 8 years. Understanding or not? How much was the rate of interest? 6%. The bank will reduce it to 5.5%. Yes or no? So from now onwards, we will consider that the repayment schedule is not 5 years, it is 8 years. From now onwards, we will charge interest not at 6%, we will charge at only 5.5%. So this way your loan is rescheduled. Sometimes at the time of reschedulement of the loan, what happens, the interest which was remaining, last 3 years interest which was pending, no? Even that gets converted into a loan. So the bank will tell you that don't pay this interest also which was remaining to be paid. Yes or no? This interest also is converted into a loan. Pay this in the form of loan in small parts. Can your interest be converted into loan? Now tell me, last 3 years interest, which was disallowed under section 43B because it was not paid. Yes or no? Now all the 3 years loan, if you pay in this year, will be allowed as a deduction in this year. But instead of paying, the bank converted that interest into loan in this year. Now the moment the last 3 years interest got converted into loan, can you say that the interest is paid? Now there is no interest. All the last 3 years interest got converted into loan. So the moment it is converted, it is paid. Bullshit. Converting the last 3 years loans into a loan is not the payment of that interest. Will not be allowed as a deduction on conversion. Getting my point? When you actually pay this interest, now actually when this loan repayment will be done, meaning the interest of 3 years which is now converted into loan, at the time of conversion it is not paid. So it will not be allowed as a deduction. Saying that, see, now it is paid. No. Bloody where it is paid? The money is not going from your pocket. The 3 years interest is getting converted into loan. That conversion is not treated as payment. Now that loan is what? Is nothing but amount of interest, which is now appearing as what? Loan. Now whenever you repay any part of that loan, it is as good as interest is paid at that time. That time you claim the deduction. But conversion of interest into loan is not treated as payment of interest. Whenever that converted amount will be repaid in the future, at that time it will be considered that the interest is paid at that time. That time you will be able to claim the deduction. So tell me, last year interest, last to last year interest, and last to last year, last 3 years interest, did you pay or it was payable? So it was disallowed under section 43B. So it was disallowed as a deduction. Sorry, it was disallowed under section 43B. Now the entire 3 years interest is actually paid in this year. Then it will be allowed as a deduction in this year. But you are not actually paying right now. You are getting it converted into loan from the bank. Now can I say conversion of these 3 years interest into loan in this year? This is not a payment of that interest. So you cannot say that now this interest should be allowed in this year. All the 3 years interest should be allowed in this year. That it is paid. See, it is converted into loan. Hence it is paid. No, conversion into loan is not a payment. Now that converted amount was nothing but your interest only. Yes or no? Whenever you repay that amount in the future, it is as good as payment of that interest. At that time you can claim the deduction of that interest. Understood? Sure? See, so loan is taken from specified lenders. On that loan, interest for past few years was still payable, so it was already disallowed under section 43B. Therefore, the same is not yet allowed as a deduction. It was disallowed under section 43B. Okay. If the above interest is converted into, such conversion is not treated as payment. Therefore, converted interest is not allowed as a deduction in the year of conversion. However, when this converted interest will be, that converted interest which is now a loan, whenever that repayment of that loan will happen, it is as good as payment of interest. At that time, it will be allowed in the year of repayment. Whatever loan is repaid, to that extent the interest can be taken as a deduction. Understood? So this is an important point. This is CBDT clarification, circular. Done? Next one. Now see, assessee is giving a bank guarantee. Can you give a bank guarantee? Hello? So let's take an example that you have incurred some business expense. You have bought some goods or you have taken some services for your business from any person. And you are buying the goods worth 10 crores for your business or profession. Amount of purchases, small or big? 10 crore purchase for your business, small amount of purchase or a big amount of purchase? Big amount of purchase. 10 crores is not a small amount. Now you are purchasing that amount from me. You are purchasing those goods from me. Don't you think I'll be worried about the payment? That what if I'm giving you the goods on credit, amount of rupees 10 crores. What if you don't pay me the money? What if you run away, become Vijay Mallya, vanish? Understanding or not? So I'll be worried about my payment. So before even sending you the goods worth 10 crores on credit. See, I trust you. You are a big businessman. You are a big company. These purchases usually you make for your business or profession. Yes or no? But it is possible, no, that sometimes even your business, in your business, you might also not be able to give me the payment. And having a blind faith while doing the business is not advisable. You have to be cautious always. So even if your reputation is good, even if your business is doing well, I am giving goods worth 10 crores on credit. So are you going to pay me for that? Yes, financial condition is strong, big company, we are going to pay you, sir. No, I don't have trust. I don't believe you. Do something, no. Just give me a bank guarantee. Just give me the bank guarantee is what? It is an assurance from the bank, your bank, that if you fail to pay that 10 crore, the bank will pay me on your behalf. Then you and your bank understand the things. I wanted my 10 crore. If you are not giving that 10 crore, then at least your bank should give me. Take a guarantee from your bank and give me that guarantee. So are you purchasing the goods from me? Tell me yes or no. Are you purchasing the goods from me? How much? 10 crores. Is it your business expense? And for that business expense, are you making the payment to me? No. You're just giving the bank guarantee. Giving the bank guarantee is not the payment of that expense. Understanding? So any of those expenses, C, T, B, I, L, R, incurred for your business or profession. And for those payment, for those expenses, if you are giving any bank guarantee, to the opposite party, yes or no? Giving the bank guarantee only is not the actual payment of that expense. You are just giving an assurance that if you fail, the bank will pay on your behalf. Giving the assurance is not the actual payment. So at the time of giving the bank guarantee, the deduction will not be allowed. The deduction will be allowed for these expenses when the actual payment of these expenses is made by the assessee. So, will you take the deduction of 10 crore at the time when you will give the bank guarantee to me? Or when you will actually make the payment of that 10 crores? Actually make the payment of that 10 crores. Understanding or not? So, assessee is any person is giving a bank guarantee for payments. Payment of expenses or business or profession. So, just giving a bank guarantee is not payment of expense. Therefore, such expense for which the bank guarantee is given shall not be allowed till it is actually paid. Understood? Next one. Now, see, electricity is supplied here. Which is the company supplying the electricity in Bangalore? BESCOM. What is the full form? BESCOM. BESCOM. Yes or no? What is the full form? Electricity company, no? Hello? Don't you think that this electricity company, BESCOM, this is an electricity company, this is owned by the government, Karnataka government, state government is the owner of this company. Majority shares are held by Karnataka government in this company. So meaning that electricity is supplied by government. Electricity is supplied by this government company. Government company is not government, by the way. And the payment which you are going to make is not in the nature of taxes, duties, cess under any law. The payment is electricity charges. What are these payments? So even if the electricity charges are payable to the government, they don't take the character or color of what? Taxes, duties, cess payable under any law. This is just electricity charges. So electricity charges can be payable to the state government, can be payable to the state government, yes or no, to an undertaking of the state government. Those electricity charges shall be allowed on mercantile basis. If you are calculating your PGBP income on what basis? Mercantile basis. So all the expenses you are supposed to claim on what basis? Mercantile basis. Except CTBILR. Hello? So CTBILR. These expenses will be allowed only on payment basis. Other expenses are allowable on method of accounting. So if you are following method of accounting, mercantile basis, then all the business expenses will be allowed on mercantile basis. So can you claim this expense on mercantile basis? The answer is yes. Because the payment is for electricity, even if it is payable to the government, is not in the nature of taxes, duties, cess, etc. On that you cannot apply 43B. So this year's electricity charges payable, and you are following mercantile basis of accounting, will be still allowed as a deduction even if it was payable to the government. Even if it was payable to the government, still it will be allowed as a deduction on what basis? Mercantile basis. Why? Because even if the payment is to be made to the government, even if these charges are supposed to be paid to the government, they are not in the nature of taxes, duties, cess, etc. under any law. They are what? Electricity charges. So, sir, if you are an assessee, electricity charges are payable to the state government, meaning I am writing BESCOM over here. What is BESCOM? Hello, what is BESCOM? BESCOM is as good as government undertaking, as good as government only. So the electricity charges are payable to the government. Have you actually made the payment? No. Still this electricity charges will be allowed as a deduction. Because on these electricity charges you cannot apply 43B. 43B will be applicable only in the case of CTBILR. That's it. And this is not the amount in the nature of taxes, duties, cess. This is simple what? Electricity charges. So it will not be disallowed under section 43B if it is payable. If the assessee is following mercantile system of accounting, so even if the electricity charges are payable, they are still allowable as a deduction, as your business expense. Just because it was payable to the state government and the payment is not made, that does not mean that it will be disallowed. 43B will be attracted and it will be disallowed. This will still be allowed as a deduction, as your business expense. Understanding or not? So, electricity charges to the state government is not in the nature of what? Taxes, duties or cess. Hence, on them, you cannot apply the disallowance of 43B. Even if they are not paid, they can still be claimed as a deduction. This is also CBDT, circular clarification. Now you won't even believe, you won't even imagine if the examiner wants to, make your paper a little bit tricky or difficult, no, he will try to exploit these small points in the adjustments. And if you will not be careful in these things, 100% if these things are coming in the question paper, you are going to say that the question paper was tough. Question paper is never tough. Your reading, your revisions, your giving importance to the things was not proper. Hence you are thinking that the question paper was difficult. This thing is there in your syllabus. If you read it and if you remember it and go to the exam, then immediately this will come in front of you. Immediately it will strike your mind. Because you have properly revised the things and remembered the things and went for the exam. Confidence level will be the next level of confidence at that time. You'll never be afraid of facing the paper. Many of you don't give the question exam tests also in the class. What is the reason for that? You're not prepared for your exams. You don't prepare for your class tests. If the test is on Sunday, you will wake up at Saturday. And Saturday, you will try to read all the things which are going to come in the exam tomorrow. Knowing that bloody what topic is to be, asked in the Sunday test, you don't read for the test every day. Small parts. You want to read everything at one go on the day before the test. And that day also you don't read properly. Some or the other things are there in your life. Because of that, you are not prepared. And then you take out different reasons to miss the test. Sir, I was not feeling well. This happened, that happened. These are all excuses which you are giving to yourself. You are making your life miserable. What if it was not your class test, it was your real exam? Would you have missed that? Then why do you miss this? If you are not giving these tests in the class, 100% in the examination you will not be able to write. Your pen will not work only. Because first time everything you will face in the exam. Even the greatest of all time batsman, Mr. Sachin Tendulkar, he used to practice for n number of hours before going for a small match also. Even if the match is not a big match, for every match he used to bloody practice, net practice. The tests which you are going to give here are your net practices, which you are not at all understanding. You directly want to go in the match and directly want to, score a 6, 4. The moment you lift your bat, you'll be clean bowled. You'll be clean bowled at that time. Why? Without practice, you are going to face the match. Without practice, you are going to face the CA exams. Not appearing the tests over here is not going to help you. And why are you not appearing? I have already told you. You don't read the things, you don't study the things well in advance. Yesterday I was telling you about this also. If I am teaching here, busy in talkings, hee hoo, as if I don't give any, I don't know anything that what you all are doing. So how are you going to pass your exams? I'm wondering that. And every day if someone is telling you something about these things, and especially your teacher, so he is actually seeing all the flaws in you, and he is pointing out your flaws, and you are not, not doing anything for your improvement, then even the God will not be able to save you. Day before exam, we'll go to temple. After the exam, at the time of result, we'll go to the temple, that God, please. You'll not have to beg in front of God also. Even God will gift you your degree, if you are made for that, and if you have done the proper hard work for that. You'll not have to go and beg for that. So take some improvement in your life, bring some improvement in your life. Otherwise, what you are going to do in your future, I'm very much worried about you. I cannot see you all like this. So, small points. Will you remember these type of points? Tomorrow, Viva, till PGBP everything. Starting from chapter number 1 till PGBP. Everything I am going to ask. Anything, any place I will ask. Okay? And this was your punishment for not asking me that, sir, you had told that you are going to ask. So please take the Vivas, meaning that you did not study. So tomorrow you are going to give me the Viva for all the chapters till PGBP. Salaries, house property, even PGBP will be there. Okay? Next one. Now in 43B, 43B. One more expense. Do you remember? Here I have put a box. So C, T, B, I, L, R. These expenses are covered under 43B. One more expense is covered. And this was the amendment by Finance Act 2023. This was an amendment by Finance Act 2023. So in Finance Act 2023, this amendment came and one more expenses got added to that list. C, T, B, I, L, R. One more expenses added. Any payment, any amount, any sum payable to any small or micro or small enterprise. Do you know micro, small and medium enterprises? MSME. Micro, small and medium enterprises. Development Act 2007. There is one law in India. MSMED Act. Which Act? MSMED Act. Micro, Small and Medium Enterprises Development Act 2006. 2006, not 7, 2006. So MSMED Act, as per this act, there are certain enterprises which are micro, certain enterprises which are small, there are certain enterprises which are medium. So which enterprises are known as micro enterprises? The enterprises whose turnover is up to 5 crores, and the enterprises where the investment in the plant and machinery equipment is up to 1 crore. Up to 1 crore. So what is in your business, in your profession? Are you a person? Yes or no? So in your business, in your profession, you have acquired plant and machinery. So what is the total investment in the plant and machinery and equipment in your business? 1 crore or less. And what is your turnover? 5 crores or less. Then you are a micro enterprise. You are a micro enterprise. And you are a small enterprise if your turnover is up to 50 crores. Turnover is more than 50 crores. Sorry, more than 5 crores, but up to 50 crores. Turnover is 50 crores or less, but it is more than 5 crores. But what if the investment in plant and machinery and equipment is more than 1 crore? then it has to be up to 10 crores. Understanding? So what is a micro enterprise? What is a micro enterprise? What happened? What happened? First of all, let me explain this, no? Let me explain this. Then I'm going to take you to that ICI study mat where you are looking at that thing. Okay. So at the time when the amendment came, at that time, the micro enterprise and small enterprise, this was the definition of micro enterprise and small enterprise. Now that has been changed. It is given in your study mat also. Okay, no? So, but first let me explain this thing. Only then you will understand what change they have brought. Okay, no? So first of all, up to 1 crore. Investment in what? Plant and machinery and equipment is up to 1 crore. And also the turnover is up to 5 crore. So any enterprise fulfilling these two conditions will be known as micro enterprise. And any enterprise fulfilling these two conditions, meaning their investment in plant machinery equipment is more than 1 crore but up to 10 crore. The turnover is more than 5 crores but up to 50 crore. That will be known as small enterprise. Now, this was the definition of micro enterprise and small enterprise. There are three types of enterprises I told you. Micro, small and medium. I am talking about only two enterprises. One, micro, and second, medium enterprises are not covered. Medium enterprises are only micro and small enterprises. Only micro and small enterprises. They are usually not cash rich. They always have financial strains. And for example, there is a big businessman, okay, big company. This company is buying the goods or services from these type of enterprises. So I am an assessee, a very big company, yes or no? So what am I doing? What am I doing? I am buying goods or services from any of these enterprises, micro enterprise or small enterprise. Now tell me, for me, if I am buying the goods and services, for me it is expense. And for this enterprise it is income. Now if they don't get their incomes on time, no, they don't grow. And ultimately they are under financial crunch already. They are not that big enterprises. Can you see? Investment in the plant and machinery is within 1 crore limit. Turnover is also less than 5 crores. Small enterprise then, investment not more than 10 crores in the plant and machinery. And then, turnover is also up to 50 crores. So these are usually not that cash rich enterprises, you know. For their survival, for their growth, the government has to think. So if big business houses are buying goods and services from them, you are cash rich, you can give money to them at any time. But if they don't get their money on time, their survival gets affected sometimes. Huge amounts are pending to be received from big companies. Like for example, I am a small enterprise, I am a micro enterprise, and Reliance is my biggest customer. So now that Reliance will take the advantage of this. Reliance will say, see, we'll stop buying from you if we'll keep on asking for money. Money whenever we want, that time we'll give you the money. Bloody big order will go from my hand just because I'll ask for money. And money also they are not giving me on time. So that was actually affecting these type of small and medium enterprises. Yes or no? So the government came up with an idea that these big organizations are exploiting these small and medium enterprises, that these big organizations for their business, for their profession, they are buying goods and services from these small and micro enterprises and not making the payment to them on time. And since they are not getting their payments on time, getting the payment very late. Some big companies used to pay if 2 months credit is given. No, they never used to pay within 2 months. They used to pay after 3 months, 6 months. And if these small enterprises used to say anything, they used to, they used to tell them that we'll cancel our order. We'll start buying from some other supplier. So the small and micro enterprises used to not say anything. Even if the money is not received, there was too much of financial stress. Here and there, they will arrange for the money for doing their business. Even if some money is receivable, they were not getting the money on time. So what the government said? This should be paid on time. Small and micro enterprises must be paid on time. So to do that, something needs to be done. So in 2023, amendment came in section 43B. And what this amendment said, if any goods or services are purchased from micro enterprise or small enterprise, which enterprise? Micro enterprise or small enterprise, then the payment for those goods or services must be made by the assessee on or before the due date specified in MSME Act. Not on or before the due date of ROI. No. For this payment, ROI due date is not relevant. For this payment, the due date specified in MSME Act, section number 15. So if the payment is made to micro or small enterprise, any business expense you have incurred, assessee has incurred any business expense for purchase of goods, purchase of services, yes or no? Any business expense incurred by the businessman, and for that expense, the businessman is supposed to make the payment to whom? Any micro or small enterprise. Then that amount will be allowed as a deduction in the hands of assessee only if the assessee has made the payment to that micro or small enterprise within the due date specified in MSME Act. So if you have made the payment within the due date, then take the deduction of that expense. But if the payment is not made within the due date specified in MSME Act, then that payment cannot be, then that expense cannot be allowed on mercantile basis. No. Understanding? Then it will be disallowed under section 43B, and the year in which you will actually make the payment, in that year the payment will be allowed as a deduction. So here you are not supposed to miss what? The MSME due date. Which due date? Even if the payment is made prior to due date of filing your ROI, still that payment will be disallowed if the payment was made after the due date of MSME. So if you want to claim the expense as a deduction, make the payment for that expense on or before the due date specified in MSME Act. Now what is the due date specified in MSME Act? Given in section number 15. Given in section number 15. So see, due date is time limit for making the payment as per section 15 of MSME Act. If between the assessee and that micro or small enterprise, okay, if between the assessee and that enterprise there is an agreement, then whatever the date prescribed in that agreement, whatever the period prescribed in that agreement, within that period the payment must be made. But that period should not be more than 45 days. So MSME Act says that if between you and that enterprise there is an agreement to buy and sell the goods, agreement to buy and sell the service, yes or no? So you have entered into a agreement. For your business or profession, you are going to buy the goods. For your business or profession, you are supposed to take the service from that micro or small enterprise, yes or no? And for that, you both have entered into an agreement. In that agreement, if the period is specified, then within that period the payment must be made, and that period should not be more than 45 days. Understanding? And if there is no agreement, then within 15 days. Then within, now period of 45 days, period of 15 days should be counted from which date? From the date on which the goods are received or services are given. From that date, within 45 days maximum, if agreement exists. Agreement period from this date or from this date, 45 days, whichever is lower. And if there is no agreement, then from this date, from the date of receipt of goods, from the date of receipt of service, within 15 days, the payment must be made. This is the due date. This is the period specified in section 15 of MSMED Act. Within this period, if the payment is made, then the payment will be allowed as a deduction, as your business expense. But if the payment is not made within this period, then 43B will be attracted and the payment will be disallowed. Hello? And it will be allowed in the year in which the payment is actually made. Will you remember this? Now, this section as it is, I have told you, as it came for the first time. Now, what are the changes which have taken place in this section this year? And that is very important for your examination point of view. Yes or no? Now see, tell me the page number, ICI study mat. 293 or 4? 293. 3 and 4 both, no? Okay, 291, 293. Okay, see. Can you check here? Any sum payable by the assessee to a? Are they using the word medium enterprise? Only micro and small. Beyond what? Beyond the time limit specified in section 15 of MSMED Act would be allowed as a deduction only in that previous year in which such sum is actually paid. So it will be disallowed under section 43B if it is not paid within the time limit given in section 15. So if you want to claim this amount as a deduction, then make the payment for that expense to the micro or small enterprise within the time limit prescribed in section 15. But if the payment is made beyond that time, then the payment will be disallowed as per 43B, will not be allowed as a deduction from this year's business income, will be allowed as a deduction from that year's business income in which it is actually paid. Simple. So now section 15 says that within how much, if the sum payable by assessee to micro or small enterprise is paid as per written agreement, then as per the period given in the written agreement, but which cannot be more than 45 days. If the period given in the agreement is only 30 days, then 30 days or 45 days, whichever is lower, payment should happen within 30 days. If in the agreement the period given is 60 days, so 60 days or 45 days, whichever is lower, the period cannot be more than 45 days. And if there is no agreement, then within 15 days. Yes or no? Now, if you will see, here they have given what? The meaning. Meaning of what? Micro enterprise and small enterprise. So, till last year, what did I say? Till last year, what was the micro enterprise? Investment in plant and machinery up to 1 crore and turnover is up to 5 crores. That limit has been increased. 1 crore is now 2.5 crores and 5 crores is now 10 crores. Yes or no? Hello? And what is a small enterprise? What was the small enterprise? Up to 10 crore investment in plant and machinery and the turnover should not be more than 50 crores. Yes or no? Now that 1 crore is 25 crore. 10 crores is 25 crores. Investment in the plant and machinery should not be more than 25 crores and the turnover limit has been increased. Now any enterprise whose turnover is up to 100 crores. More than 10 crores, but up to, yes, turnover. The turnover is up to 100 crores. So turnover is more than 10 crores, but up to 100 crores. And investment in plant and machinery and equipment is more than 2.5 crores, but up to 25 crores. That enterprise will be small enterprise. What if the investment in plant and machinery is less than or equal to 2.5 crores? Turnover is also less than equal to 10 crores, then that enterprise will not be a small enterprise, that will be a micro enterprise. So 1 has become 2.5, 10 has become 25, 5 has become 10, and 50 has become 100. 2.5, 25, 10 and 100. This amendment has been introduced from this year onwards. Yes or no? So will you remember this, or now this has changed? So now this will be, tell me, now this will be turnover. What are you going to write here? Less than equal to 10 crores. What are you going to write here? Less than equal to 2.5 crores. Yes or no? Here what are you going to write down? Less than equal to 25 crore. Here less than equal to 100 crores. Done, sir? So this was your section 43B. Okay. Now the same example which I have taken here, no, this is an example from your ICI study mat only. Okay. We'll see that example. Come on, see. See, Mr. A has purchased goods of how much? From A and company. So who is the assessee? Tell me. Mr. A. Mr. A is purchasing goods from A and company, and A and company is a, see, directly they have given you micro enterprise. But sometimes they will say A and company is in the business of manufacturing this item, cloth. Mr. A is taking the cloth for his business or profession from A and company. Total investment in the plant and machinery in the business of A and company is 2 crores. Turnover of A and company is 6 crores. They will not directly say that it is a micro enterprise. They are going to tell you these details. Looking at these details, you should come to know that A and company is a micro enterprise. So from micro enterprise, Mr. A is purchasing goods worth. Now Mr. A must make the payment within the time given in MSME Act. If A has made the payment of 10,000 within that time limit, then this 10,000 will be allowed as a deduction in this year only. Otherwise, it will be allowed as a deduction in the year in which it will be actually paid. Yes or no? So now tell me, when the goods are purchased 1st of March 2026. So this is the date on which Mr. A has got the goods. As per the written agreement, Mr. A and company is having a written agreement. Between them, the payment has to be made by 5th of April 26. So from this date, if you will count 45 days, from March 1st, if you will count 45 days, so within 45 days the payment has to be made. So the payment has to be made within. So the period is not more than, as per the agreement, the period is not more than 45 days. Full March month, 31 days, and 5 days of April, 36 days. So that period is not more than 45 days as per the agreement. So within this period, the payment has to be made. So on or before 5th of April, on or before, the payment must be made. Yes or no? Now see, Mr. A follows mercantile system of accounting. So tell me, if Mr. A has paid the sum on 2nd April, meaning within the prescribed time, the payment is made. Yes or no? Will this 10,000 be allowed as a deduction in this year only? Even if this year it was not paid, it was paid in the next year, but it was paid on 2nd of April prior to what? Prior to the period, prior to the due date of MSME Act. So this year 10,000 is not paid. So this year 10,000 will be allowed on mercantile basis because it is actually paid within the time limit given in MSME Act. So what was the time limit given? 5 April. 5 April, before that you have paid. So either you pay in this year, then it will be allowed fully. Or have you paid in this year? No, you have paid in the next year on 2nd of April. Still it will be allowed on mercantile basis in this year. Why? Because the payment is done within the time prescribed in MSME Act. Now tell me, if the payment is made on 20th of April, 20th of April, meaning that after what? The due date of MSME Act. So tell me, this year, this is your previous year 25, 26. 10,000 is paid or still payable? In this year, 10,000 is still payable. Will it be allowed on mercantile basis? No. No. Because you have not made the payment on or before the MSME due date. You should have made the payment on or before 5th of April. Then we could have given the deduction on in the previous year 25-26 only. Understanding? Simple. This year's expense will be allowed in this year if the payment is made on or before the due date of MSME. First, this year amount is 10,000 will be allowed in this year if the payment is made before the MSME due date. And what if the payment is made after the MSME due date? Then the expense will not be allowed on mercantile basis. No, this year it is still payable, no? Will not be allowed as a deduction on mercantile basis. We should have allowed it if you would have made the payment on or before 5th of April. But are you making the payment on or before 5th of April? No. When are you making the payment? 20th of April, meaning after the due date. In the next year, go and take the deduction in next year because the payment is actually made in next year. This year it will be disallowed as per 43B. Will you remember this? Something like this comes in the exam. Will you be able to crack it? Sure. So now 43B is over. Which section is over? 43B is over. Now can you see deemed PGBP income? Hello. Deemed PGBP income. Do you remember 41.2, 41.3 and 41.4? These three sections I have already covered. Balancing charge, power business, asset purchased for 100 crores, 100 lakhs, 40 lakhs depreciation already taken. What was the WDV? 60 lakhs. And you are selling that asset for a value which is more than 60 lakhs. So any recovery of selling price over and above the cost, over and above the WDV, to the extent of depreciation allowed, will be treated as your balancing charge, will be treated as deemed PGBP income. I have already told you. Yes or no? Then one more thing I told you. If you have purchased one asset for scientific research, cost of that asset was 5 lakhs. Now if you are selling that asset for 4 lakhs, then recovery of any amount by selling that asset to the extent of cost which was already allowed will also be treated as your deemed PGBP income. If that asset you have sold for 4 lakhs, then 4 lakh will be treated as your deemed PGBP income. If you have sold that asset for 2 lakhs, then 2 lakhs will be treated as your deemed PGBP income. If you have sold that asset for 5 lakhs, then 5 lakhs will be treated as your deemed PGBP income. What if you have sold that asset for 5 lakh 60,000? 5 lakh will be treated as your deemed PGBP income as per 41(3), and the balance amount, excess amount over and above the cost will be taken as your capital gain. I have already told you all these things. If any bad debt which was allowed earlier, later on recovered, so that recovery of bad debt will also be treated as your deemed PGBP income in the year in which it is recovered. But it will be, that recovery will be treated as your deemed PGBP income if it is a recovery of that bad debt which was allowed as a deduction. But the bad debt which was not allowed as a deduction, later on recovered, then later on that recovery will not be taxable as your deemed PGBP income, because that recovery is out of the bad debt which was not allowed as a deduction. Yes or no? And now only one section is remaining, 41(1), which says that any benefit, any recovery which is against any expense or loss or trading liability which was already allowed under the head PGBP. So do you have any expense? Yes. Any loss? Yes. Any trading liability for which the deduction was already allowed under the head PGBP. Now against this expense, any benefit or recovery is coming. Against that loss, any benefit or recovery is coming. Against that trading liability, any benefit or recovery is coming. Then this benefit or recovery will also be treated as your deemed PGBP income. Because the amount which is recovered is against an expense, against a loss, against a liability which we have already allowed under the head PGBP. So have you taken any deduction for expense, loss, liability under the head PGBP? Against that same expense, loss or liability, if any recovery is made later on, then that recovery, then that benefit will be treated as your deemed PGBP income. Best example. There was some stock lying in your godown, 50 lakhs. All of a sudden, it caught fire. 50 lakh worth of stock lost by fire. Is it your loss? Is it your loss? So this loss will be allowed as a deduction. In the course of business or profession, this loss happened. 50 lakh stock was lost by fire. So you will take the deduction of this 50 lakhs. But fortunately, you had taken insurance of the stock, and insurance company is giving you 40 lakh rupees of claim. So how much is your actual loss? But you have claimed a deduction of, so 40 will have to reverse, no? 40 will be your deemed PGBP income. So 50 allowed, 40 deemed PGBP income, net 10 lakh is allowed. That was only your loss. Understanding or not? Now tell me, your employee ran away with your money. From your cash box, employee stole 5 lakh rupees and he ran away. Is it a profit in your business or a loss? How much loss? That 5 lakh will be allowed as a deduction. You will file an FIR in the police station that my employee stole this much cash from the cash box and he has ran away. So police will register an FIR. That is a legal evidence that this 5 lakh rupees your employee has stolen, which is your business loss. For this 5 lakh, you will get a deduction. Later on, police caught that employee and could recover 1 lakh rupees from him. So out of 5 lakhs, 1 lakh is recovered, no? So how much is your loss? 5 lakh or only 4 lakh? So how much deduction you have claimed? 1 lakh is recovered. 1 lakh will be deemed PGBP income. So 5 lakh is a deduction. 1 lakh is a deemed PGBP income. Net effect is 4 lakh. And your actual loss was 4 lakh only. Yes or no? So you are doing a purchase. Another example. You are doing a purchase. Credit purchase. So you have purchased goods or your stock in trade from a supplier on credit. So stock in trade worth 10 lakhs. So 10 lakh is your business expense. Because stock in trade purchase is your business expense, will be allowed as a deduction. So this year, how much stock in trade you purchased? 10 lakhs. What is the purchase for this year? 10 lakh. Whether paid or payable will be allowed in this year, because you are following what basis? Mercantile basis. So since you are following what basis? Mercantile basis of accounting. This year 10 lakh rupees purchase cost of this year, purchase of stock in trade of this year will be allowed as a deduction in this year. But this entire 10 lakh was purchased on credit. Was purchased on credit means what entry you should have passed? Purchase account debit to creditor. Purchase account 10 lakh. Creditor 10 lakh. Yes or no? So you have created a trading liability of rupees 10 lakh. Now to this trading liability you have to make a payment of 10 lakh. 10 lakh you have already taken a deduction. 10 lakh of purchase, which is now your creditor. For that 10 lakh already deduction is allowed under PGBP head. Yes or no? Now against that 10 lakh, you are supposed to make the payment of 10 lakh. But the creditor wanted money in a hurry. So creditor gave me a discount of 50,000. He told me that, sir, pay me only 9 lakh 50, full account will be settled, I'll give you a discount of 50,000. So what I did, to get that discount of 50,000, I paid 9 lakh 50, account got settled. Now what entry was passed? Cash bank account debit, 9 lakh 50. Hello. Discount about account debit, 50,000. To creditor, 10 lakh. 10 lakh creditor settled for 9 lakh 50 after having a discount of 50,000. Now tell me, how much deduction under the head PGBP I have claimed? 10 lakh. So against that 10 lakh, I should have made the payment of 10 lakh. But how much payment I have actually made? So that 50,000 benefit which is there in the form of discount has to be my deemed PGBP income. Because that 50,000 is against that amount which was already allowed as a deduction. From that 10 lakh, this 50,000 discount is there. So that 50,000 should not be allowed to me as a deduction. How much should have been allowed? 9 lakh 50, because actual payment was 9 lakh 50 only. But how much was actually allowed? 10 lakh. So to give a net effect of 9 lakh 50, what I will have to do? I will have to take this 50,000 as my deemed PGBP income. Understanding or not? How many examples you want like this? So many examples can be there. But remember, any expense, any loss, or any trading liability which you have already claimed as a deduction under the head PGBP as your expense. Against that, if any benefit is received or any recovery is made, that benefit or recovery will also be treated as your deemed PGBP income. Will you remember this? This is the end of section 41. You will not even realize that we have completed 4 parts of this chapter. PGBP is almost over. Now you are all set to solve the main PGBP questions. Which questions? So we'll take a small break, and after the break we are going to start solving the questions. Okay. Once we'll solve all the questions, then we are going to discuss the balance part and we'll wind up with the chapter today. Okay, now? Take a break, 40 minutes break.